What's up guys, welcome to Vintage Genetics, where it is all about classic bodybuilding, and today we're going to talk about what causes the waist of pro bodybuilders to be big and of classic bodybuilders to be small. And that basically comes down to one important muscle, the transverse abdominis. So the transverse abdominis is basically the lowest layer, the deepest layer of your abdominal region. It has little to do with the visible abs, which are your six-pack, the rectus abdominis. I know these are difficult names, but the six-pack on the front is on the front here, and deeper, here are the organs, is the transverse abdominis. It is basically a natural corset around the body, the natural weightlifting belt. Its function is to compress the organs and to help in core stability. You actually use it when doing deadlifts, when doing squats and most other free weight lifts. But what you want to do is actually make it stronger beyond its natural point. Now I'm going to make a funny, maybe a little weird comparison, but that is between pro bodybuilders and pregnant women. Wow, okay. They don't seem to have much in common at first, but after a while, pro bodybuilders, by eating so much food, and I do believe this is the cause, their abdominals region, it just bulges outwards. And this is because eating a lot of food that expands the stomach, and when it is expanding, it's pushing against the transverse abdominis, and when something is constantly pressuring something, the connective tissue weakens. And when it weakens, it's not strong enough to have a small waist. It'll naturally not compress the organ as much and just bulge outwards by default. Pregnant women have the same problem in some cases. When you get pregnant as a woman, of course, you know, the baby grows and the stomach expands, but also the transverse abdominis, which is around your stomach, around the baby basically, it's being pushed back. So for 9 months, 6 months, when the baby is actually bigger, the stomach, the transverse abdominis, is under pressure. And again, the same story goes, when something is under pressure for a long time, the connective tissue weakens because you're not contracting, it's basically being stretched out, it's just weakening. And after pregnancy, what happens is that the abdominals on the front, as you can see in this picture, they basically split apart because the waist has literally become wider. And there are a couple of ways to fix this for pregnant women. There actually are a couple of exercises to do. One of them is the vacuum pose. And this is a good segue into why classic bodybuilders never have this bulging of the waist. First of all, they don't eat as much as the pro bodybuilders do today. Today the foods is so high because, and it has to do with drugs as well, the muscles are simply so big nowadays. The food that is required to maintain this muscle mass is bigger than the stomach can handle. So the stomach will bulge out, causing pressure to the TVA, the transverse abdominis, we'll call TVA, causes pressure to build up, and the connective tissue weakens, causing the transverse abdominis to weaken, to expand the waist. Same happens to pregnant women. But classic bodybuilders don't eat as much, so this expansion is not as great. But most importantly, classic bodybuilders all did vacuum exercises. And this is basically the best exercise to do to directly contract the transverse abdominis. So by strengthening the TVA, you get a smaller waist. And I'm actually going to use myself as an example here. I have noticed that while I don't have a bulging waist, the waist actually became a little wider over time, it has to do with squatting, with heavy lifting, but mostly the food that I've been eating. My caloric intake has increased by about 1,000 to 1,500 calories compared to my first competition. If you want to improve yourself, you're going to have to be honest. And I want to be the best classic bodybuilder I can be. So what do I have to do? I have to make my portions smaller that I'm eating. I'm eating 6 times a day right now. I might increase it to 8 times a day, but making the portions smaller and training the vacuum even more. Actually making it a complete exercise routine on ab day. Now, I'm going to show you how to do the best exercise to make the waist smaller again and to avoid having that bloated look, because you want the muscle, the transverse abdominis, to be strong and hold the organs together and be tight by default. And if you want to increase the default tension in this muscle, you've got to strengthen it and make it recognizable for your body to use. So that's why you gotta engage this muscle a lot more, and this is how you do it. Alright, so I have already showed it on this channel before, but let me show you the vacuum pose and actually make it into an exercise for you to do. So let's take a look. What I want you to do is do 3 sets of 10 to 15 seconds like this. And 3 sets while still breathing. But that one you do for 30 seconds. Because the main reason why you cannot hold it longer is because you're out of breath. But I want to let you do 3 sets of 30 seconds while still breathing, and that looks like this. So you basically still pull in your stomach like this, but you still breathe. As you can see, this is my lungs right here, and it's narrow breath. So if you take a deep breath, it's more difficult to hold it in, but narrow breaths, you can still keep it inwards. And it's much easier because I'm still talking, I'm still engaging this muscle to do the vacuum while breathing. A lot of people don't even know how to do the vacuum. So what I suggest you do is do it actually lying down on the floor, holding your thumbs in your sides near your hip bones, and actually then holding your stomach like this. And that gravity will help you, and the feeling of your thumbs will help you to contract the muscle, the TVA, towards the spine, the belly button towards the spine. So, one more important thing that I want to tell you is that regular abdominal exercises do not work the TVA. They don't. They only work the rectus abdominis for the most part, which is the layer on top of the TVA. But if the TVA expands and widens, you saw in the examples that your abs will actually split apart a little bit as well. And that is one telltale sign to see whether your TVA has actually weakened. And in my case, it has weakened a little bit over time. Even though I'm doing the vacuum exercise on a regular basis, I have to increase this to compensate for the food that I eat. But as I told you, having smaller portions will also help. But as I told you guys, I love my vegetables, I love my potatoes, so sometimes the food will be a big bowl. And I'm going to try to avoid this so that my stomach will never have this force pushing against the TVA muscle. And the TVA muscle, without the pressure building up every day, will be allowed to strengthen back into its default position. So if you have this problem, if you recognize this, I would suggest sticking to doing vacuums only. There are some different exercises on the internet, but they're less effective. The vacuum is number one. It simply engages the TVA the most effectively. The best contraction of the TVA is done with a vacuum. But if you have this problem as well, don't do direct ab work. No more crunches. And No more side oblique twisting motions, because that will actually help pull the muscle apart. If you don't have this problem of the waist getting wider, then don't stop doing direct ab work, because it will actually strengthen the structure. But once the TVA has weakened, you don't want the abs to become stronger than the TVA, because that will be disproportionate, disbalanced, and that will cause you to have injuries, weaker core, and a wider waist over time. And that is not what we want. We want a small waist. And I will be logging my own progress doing this, because I'm going to replace the ab workouts that you've seen me do on the Vintage Genetics channel and do only vacuum exercises and perhaps a few leg raises without lifting the butt of the floor. That also engages the TVA, for example, but the vacuum will always be number one. And I simply thought this was an important video to share, because so many people wonder what causes the bubble gut. And not only the pro bodybuilders have this issue, as I said, pregnant women have it, or anyone aspiring to be a bodybuilder who has to eat a lot of food also has it. And the only way to do this is to strengthen the transverse abdominis. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know if you're experiencing this yourself and what you've tried to do to rectify it. But I'm going to tell you this, doing the vacuum, just like in the golden era, will be your number one solution to the problem. So don't forget to stay golden. Alright, it's time for the first isolation exercise, the pec deck. And let's show you guys how to do that one for the upper chest. So let's do it. First of all, and deeper, here are the organs, is the transverse abdominis. It is basically a natural corset around the body, the natural weightlifting belt. Its function is to compress the organs and to help in core stability. You actually use it when doing deadlifts, when doing squats and most other free weight lifts. But what you want to do is actually make it stronger beyond its natural point. Now I'm going to make a funny, maybe a little weird comparison, but that is between pro bodybuilders. What's up guys, welcome to Vintage Genetics, where it is all about classic bodybuilding. And today we're going to talk about what causes the waist of pro bodybuilders to be big and of classic bodybuilders to be small. And the lowest layer, the deepest layer of your abdominal region. It has little to do with the visible abs, which are your six-pack, the rectus abdominis. I know these are difficult names, but the six-pack on the front is on the front here, and that basically comes down to one important muscle, the transverse abdominis. So the transverse abdominis is basically the